everyone, I'm with the Top Gun, Tucker Lutz. What's going on, man?
What's going on, buddy? Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, thanks for coming on the podcast. Did you get your training today, or I think I saw something on your story or whatever?
Yeah, I met up with my striking coach this morning,
Hmm.
did some footwork stuff, some striking, and then I got some sparring later on tonight.
That's good, man. So when it comes to your training, obviously, I will get into later on about your upcoming fight. But when it comes to your fights, do you train more or do you train less? How does that all work out?
So the last two camps, I've been kind of fortunate with the timeline to be able to. In a perfect world, you're able to periodize a little bit. So you're going way heavy at the beginning, first 3 weeks. I like doing like 3 or 4 week blocks as far as intensity goes. So I think the fight's like 3.5 weeks out, maybe just shy of that. So starting to pull back a little bit, but no, man, I've been going at it. I mean, pretty hard since I've done two camps back to back, so I've been steady grinding since like probably mid late June or so.
Yeah. Do you like when it comes to training, do you enjoy like training more or do you like having more of that time off?
Well, it's definitely that balance, bro. So most of my career, I've been working a full time job. This is the first camp that I've ever not had to do that, so it's been awesome. Because I mean, you hear back in the day, guys are talking about how they're hitting 3 sessions 6 days a week and
Yeah.
training 7, 8 hours a day. And I don't think you can do that without some type of juice or anything. You know what I'm saying? I think people changed their tune on that when you saw it came in here. But but now it's nice, man. The biggest thing is my recovery has been way more on point than it ever, because I was always waking up early for work, so I was always sleep deprived. So my recovery's been on point this camp. It's been great, man.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that can be a problem with some of these fighters who, I mean, you get to that point in your career where you might not have to work your side hustle. Like you don't have that job on the side that you have to also pay attention to as well. And so it's nice to kind of have that. You don't have to really worry about that anymore. You can just fully dial in your fights, and you can focus fully 100% focus on your upcoming fights.
Yeah, man, it's been great so far.
Mm. Yeah, but yeah. So I actually just want to jump right into the Contender series here. So I mean, your last fight, you looked good in all three rounds, in my opinion. You looked good in all three rounds. You basically you primarily you won the whole fight, and
Hmm.
and I guess and you didn't get the contract, so that just must be frustrating.
Yeah, it was frustrating, but at the same time, I kind of had a short memory because they were like, "Well, you're coming back in November." If they would have been like, "All right, see ya," that would have really sucked. Like I'd probably be working right now.
Yeah.
But so yeah, I would have liked to jump right back into or get the contract and jump right into the UFC. You know what I'm saying? That would have been ideal. But I thought it was frustrating. But at the end of the day, I put too much pressure on myself going in there to
Mhm.
get the finish, and I think I gave him too much respect that first round, and it took a little bit longer than I'd like to get my downloads in. But but it's all good, man. You got to have a short memory with that shit.
Yeah, definitely. And I think like everything kind of works out. Um, in a process. I think that's how I look at my life. I think everything kind of happens for a reason. So whether or not you got into the UFC, I mean, maybe you feel like you weren't ready, or you felt like it was a little too quick. But maybe this fight will really give you more experience, and then you get in the UFC, and then you're doing a lot better than you thought you ever would. So I think everything kind of happens for a reason, for sure. I think this is kind of an interesting upcoming fight with you on the November 7th. Your opponent Gerard Blackledge. I mean, he's kind of in the same boat as you are. He won his fight as well, and he didn't get the finish. So is this kind of like a high stakes fight in a way? Like you're both gonna really want that finish.
Yeah, for me, not so much, man. I've shifted my mindset. Like I said, I think me putting all that pressure on myself, and I don't do so. It's like for me, the more free I am in a fight, the better I perform. Always, the
Mm.
more that I can catch that. As much as I hate it, that flow state. You know what I'm saying? I hate that term. It's so oversaturated. But me, I'm just going in there, and I've been grinding my balls off. So I just feel like there's no way that I'm not going in there and just roughing this man up, really. And like I said, I put way too much pressure on the finish. So I'm just going to go in there and I know that a good performance is all that I'm going to be putting out, and the chips will fall where they do.
Absolutely. And how do you see this fight playing out? I mean, this guy, he's coming in hot. He's probably going to be wanting to get that contract as well. So, do you see it starting out slow, starting out high pace? How do you figure this fight's going to go?
No, I don't think there's no slow pace into this fight. He fought a pretty high pace fight. I thought he faded in his fight. Cardio is my strong suit. I think I could have gone 6 rounds that night. You know what I'm saying? So I jumped right back into camp. I think I got back home Wednesday. I took off till that Friday because my ankle was a little swollen. But we jumped right back into camp. I'm in the best shape of my life, working with my strength coach Nick Ehrlich, and yeah, I just feel like this fight, my pressure and my experience. Really, I'm 26 years old, but including amateurs, I've had over 20 fights, so I feel like I'm a young vet at this point. And it's just
Yeah.
the timing, everything, my sparring, my performances in the gym. It's just my pace is going to be too much.
Yeah, and I do want to kind of touch upon that with some of your fights that you've had in the past. But like, let's just go forward here for now. On November 17th, let's say you get that contract, you win, you get that contract, and I mean, with the record that you've had, I mean, besides your first fight, you have pretty much an impressive winning streak going on. I mean,
Hmm.
so do you feel like if you were to win, and do you think getting into your possible UFC debut, you would have a lot of hype going into your debut? How would you envision?
Hmm. I've honestly never thought about that. To be so that's a good question. Yeah, record speaks for itself. So 11 straight wins. Um, I'm getting that finish in November, so that will be. I think that would be 9 finishes if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But I
What?
don't know. I don't honestly. I don't pay that shit any mind as far as hype goes. Because as far as I'm concerned, I'm kind of under the radar right now. I'm not, and my whole gym is also like my boy, my training partner Skylar Sudo. He just signed. He's fighting Bellator in 3 weeks,
Hmm.
and there's a lot of killers coming out of Baltimore DMV area that I think that the scene is going to blow up within the next few months after we're making a name for ourselves.
Yeah, yeah, and definitely. And I guess, yeah, I guess, for yourself, you can't really predict how the fans and how the organization would perceive you. It's just interesting that you see a lot of these guys and girls, I guess, who have really impressive records, and they get that really good finish, or they get a really good fight in the Contender Series. And I think that's the beauty about the Contender Series. If I'm looking at fan perspective, I think that's probably one of the best decisions that the UFC's ever made. Um, I know that they haven't always made the best decisions. I think,
Hmm.
and,
Yep.
and but the thing is, I think it's great because it gives you guys a spotlight to showcase your skills.
No, I agree. I think it's awesome, man. And plus it's like it's pretty you get to know like these you get to know these fighters pretty well. I
Mhm.
think that the whole reality concept of the Ultimate Fighter or whatever, like you couldn't pay me to get on that show. It's not my scene. It's all chopped up and bullshit and made for TV. This is real. Like you're seeing up and coming talent, not just in the country, but around the world. And and I think the UFC like you said, for all their flaws, they're great at building stars, and this has just been an excellent platform for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and talking about the Ultimate Fighter, I had a girl on the podcast. Had a fighter on the podcast maybe I don't know 3 4 weeks ago, and she was on the TUF. She was on the Heavy Hitters show and Leah Letson, and she talked about. And I asked about the whole show, and she mentioned how a lot of times the show isn't exactly how it seems to be. Like a lot
Mm-mm.
scenes they cut it to make it look like there was conflict going on when really it wasn't as intense. So I agree with you, like I like the whole idea about the Contender Series. It seems very raw and very real, and I love how they give the fighters that backstory, whether where they came from, what they're looking for, what are they predicting. So I liked, and I agree, I think that's a really good thing that the UFC's done.
Yeah, man, couldn't agree more.
um, but yeah, I mean, so let's talk about your fight history. So, I mean, most of your fights have been finishes. So I guess what does that kind of show how powerful and how much of a danger you are to this featherweight?
Yeah, I agree. I would have to. to say yes. That's it. I've had fights at both 55 and 45. I think once I get this contract, I'll be heading back down to 45. Um, just kind of suits me more, and I feel like I have a size advantage there. But yeah, I think so. And really, it's the essence of my view on mixed martial arts as well as my gym, that the whole point of the contest is to finish the opponent. So essentially, a decision to me, it might as well be a loss, a decision victory. Um, because that just I don't know, that's I just feel like it's putting a stamp on and having definitive wins is it just shows that you're the better fighter, you know what I'm saying? And no one likes going to the judges and squeaking one out, or at least I don't. So but yeah, 45 or 55, I think I have knockout power in both weight classes. I feel like my top game, once I get you down, I got a lifetime of wrestling. I feel like my top game is heavy, heavy pressure. I've been really dedicating myself to my jiu-jitsu over the last 4 months or so. So I think I represent that new wave of fighter. Back in the day, obviously, you had the specialties, karates versus the wrestlers, the boxers versus the kickboxers. I'm kind of that first wave because I've been doing it since I was 17 years old, of guys who are being indoctrinated into multidisciplinary martial arts.
Yeah, and I think nowadays you kind of have to be an all-round good fighter. I mean, I don't think you're gonna get away with being a Shokan karate master like Lyoto Machida.
Mm-mm.
And you can't get away with it. Every fighter's seen every style now, so I think that you have to have that all around game. I mean, you can be a great wrestler like Khabib. I mean, you can have the stand up like Tony Ferguson. You can have stand up like Justin Gaethje. There's so many great styles out there. But if you're not disciplined in every area, you're going to be in trouble. Eventually, your number is going to come up, and
Yep.
it's important to be an all-around fighter. Second of all, yes, you have freaking amazing hands. I've been watching your highlights. Like there's a reason why that's why three of your finishes have been stoppages, doctor stoppages.
Yeah.
I mean, I had this conversation with my dad a while back, and I said, if you're the kind of guy that are having stoppages or if you're having fights that are ending and it's because of the doctor stoppage, you got some heavy fucking hands.
Hmm. Yeah, man. Yes, sir. So yeah, and honestly, because I have fast hands and I've kind of been moving away from my power, unfortunately, the last few fights, and I've been working more so on the getting quick hands, angling out. I love footwork based striking. Like when TJ Dillashaw won the belt way back in the day. Like I think that was what opened my eyes with switching the stances. But now this camp I've been really focusing on kind of taking my time, settling down on my strikes so that I'm bringing that power back into my game rather than just the accumulation.
Yeah, and I think that there's fighters that say, like, I mean, you got Israel Adesanya. He says, I don't hit hard, but I hit sharp, and that's
Hmm.
you watch how he's knocking these guys out, and I think power is great, but put that if you can't press that button on the chin, I mean, it's you might luck out and knock people out, but you gotta find those ankles, you gotta find those shots, and
Yep.
yeah. So I appreciate the fact that you're, and I think do you find that getting away from the power striking is actually improving with your cardio, or has cardio always been a strength of yours?
Um, yeah, cardio has always been a strength.
Mm.
It's ironic. The only loss I have, I actually gassed out, but I had a horrendous, not to make excuses, but I had a horrible, horrible weight cut. I lost it was the day of weigh-ins. I lost like 10 pounds in 6 hours or so. So I was gassed out hard in the third round. So that's a powerful lesson right there, man.
Well, I know you say no excuses, but I mean, I think that's a pretty damn good excuse. I mean, weight cut.
Yeah.
If people don't understand what weight cuts are, I mean, you gotta know what a weight cut does to your body. I mean, we're not. I think as humans, we're not meant to cut the water weight that we do, especially fighters. I mean, to cut that water weight, I mean, I guess you're kind of killing yourself a little bit each time that you do. So, I don't think it was any excuse. I think I don't think it's a bad excuse. I think it's a great excuse. Um, so yeah, I don't blame you there. Um, but I mean, so going back to you having these stoppages, do you kind of feel like maybe you're like the next kind of Tony Ferguson, or a more new improved version? What's your thoughts?
I've never been really one to compare myself to any fighters. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm the next Top Gun Tucker Lutz, the one and only.
Yeah.
So I obviously I get influence from some people. Like growing up, I always tried to when I first started striking. I really tried to emulate Frankie Edgar because I thought that he mixed in beautiful boxing, footwork, and then his takedowns were seamless into it. But really, the older I get, the more it's about finding yourself through the pursuit. So I don't think so. I think I'm one of one, man.
Hmm. And yeah, and I guess yeah. So you got. I guess you have a different pair of different finishes. What do you prefer? Do you like the knockouts? Do you like the submissions? Um, I mean, you have no problem doing either. So what do
Mhm.
you what do you prefer?
Man, there's nothing like catching someone and putting them away with the hands. There's that's that primal feeling that I think that we all learn for every now and again.
Hmm.
But yeah, so I'd say I've kind of fallen in love with the strike in the last few years. But when it goes to the floor, I'm really confident in my game and my top pressure. But I'd say there's nothing like catching someone on the chin and putting them out, man.
Oh, absolutely. Especially if it's just a one punch knockout. I think that's typically what fans like to see is that one. I don't know if you saw what was it? I think walking Buckley. I think
Hmm.
fight. He's the guy caught his sidekick or something, and then he just kicked back and clocked in the chin. I was like, that was just incredible. I mean,
Yeah, that's a once in a lifetime move right there, man. That shit was insane.
well, and I think he even said himself, he's like, yeah, we train that, but I mean, the chances of you ever applying that in a fight is 0 to 9. I mean, I don't think that it's very hard to do a move like that, but I don't think any human being is gonna withstand a strike like that.
No,
The human body just cannot withstand a shot like that.
I know with the heel has got to be one of the hardest parts of the body, man. And just
100%.
with and that dude's a brick shit house too. So he just all that hip movement, just bam. I think I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure in Glory, Raymond Daniels pulled off one of those as well, where he like touches you with that side kick, and then in the air he'll hit you with that turning kick, and it's beautiful, man.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that guy, but I might have seen the highlights. Yeah,
Yeah,
um,
it's worth looking into for sure.
yeah, and I know like for myself, it's always been a favorite kick of mine. It's something that we learned in Shotokan, and it's just I mean the ball of the foot is great too. I mean those are great for your front snapping kicks, but I mean for the most part, I would I for myself, I if I were fighting, I would really watch how much I kick. It's just you're just asking to get taken down. I
Hmm.
myself when I train, I rarely like to throw the kicks just because I hate being taken down. I hate being
Right.
taken out. It's not fun. So yeah, so I don't know. Like the heel kicks, I mean, yeah, you get anybody across the jaw, it's good night, Irene. I don't care who you are. It's
Yeah, that was phenomenal, man. That's that a career move right there, man. That'll be legacy shit right there.
hmm But yeah, so just kind of moving on here. The coronavirus not looking great in the states. Obviously, the sports, they're trying their best to kind of keep things moving as the virus continues to rage on. Um, I think we've seen some fights being pulled out because of the COVID, whether the corner gets coronavirus or the fighter gets COVID, et cetera, et cetera. Do you ever have that kind of fear that one of your opponents is going to pull out because of that? Does that ever go through your mind?
Yeah, it definitely does. I mean, for all parties because it's this thing's so weird.
Hmm.
And s- I'm just doing all I can to kind of be responsible. I've been training with like pretty much the same group of guys, and because I mean bars and I live in Maryland and like bars and all that shit's open, but luckily my teammates are being responsible and kind of staying at home. And I'm a bit of a recluse anyway, so when I'm not in the gym, I'm just chilling at my crib anyway. But yeah, man, it definitely scares me. I had my opponent last. I don't think it was COVID related, but he pulled out like 10 days before, maybe even less. But and most of my pro fights have been like and over half of them have been people pulling out like 2 weeks or less. So it's really, really frustrating. But But with COVID, it's scary times out there, and it seems like no one really knows what's going on. But it's definitely a concern of mine. But at the end of the day, all I can do, I know that my coaches are being smart. I'm being smart, and that's really all we can do.
Yeah, I mean, you're in control of your own life. I mean, you can't control things that you have no control over, I guess. Um, and I mean, but so you're no secret to fighters pulling out. Then I mean, so going through your mindset going into this fight, do you ever have that feeling of, I'm training so hard for this fight, and then this guy pulls out and they can't replace him? Like, does that ever go through your mind? You put all this work into it. You're doing you're slowly cutting your weight in those last couple weeks. Does that ever go through your mind?
So, not for the Contender series, definitely for the regionals fights, but because there is no shortage of fighters willing to step up on, like Chase Gibson, my last opponent, for example. Respect to him. He stepped up on like a little over a week's notice, like some gangster shit right there, and bumped up a weight class too. Um, I think people blew that out of proportion because I'm mostly a featherweight myself. But at any rate, because my manager, I was sweating. I was like, bro, are they gonna find someone? And he was like, dude, there's because I think like on the East Coast anyway, there's CFFC, which is putting on shows, and
Yeah.
I've heard that LFA is as well. But other than that, and Bellator, obviously, I haven't heard of a whole lot of regional scenes doing it. Maybe Combate has too, but like you got to think there's just a stable of guys who are itching. So it would be less than ideal if this opponent doesn't go down, just because I'm tired of fucking short notice fights. They're a pain in the ass, but I think there's no shortage of fighters if that's the case.
Yeah, and I guess I would be a pain in the ass. I mean, as much as you're not prepared for them and they're not prepared for you, but the difference,
Right.
you're the one that's been training for a guy, several months, and then this guy comes in to fight you, and he's like, I got nothing to lose. How come
Hmm.
if I lose? Well, I came in on a week's notice, so I think the more the pressure is on you. So I can see how I can understand that for sure.
Yeah, it's annoying, man. It really is. It's annoying as fuck.
But so I mean, and kind of elaborating on the whole coronavirus affecting mixed martial arts, do you think there's as we kind of get into, we're pretty much what are we halfway through October?
Yeah, a little over, I think.
Crazy. Um, so we're about halfway through October. We're going to be in December, or not December, November, December, and then January, where those months really hit hard, especially with the flu. Um, I think it's no secret that the virus is probably just going to get worse and worse. I mean, no bias. I'm Canadian, but I mean, just overall, it's going to get worse. Do you think you're going to see more fights pulling out and possibly cards just falling apart because of the pullouts? How do you see sports working out?
So I think it's not like I haven't been paying too close attention, but it
Mhm.
doesn't seem to me that there's a rampant as far as UFC goes. I don't really pay attention to the other promotions really, but it doesn't seem like obviously fights are getting pulled out, but it doesn't seem like it's each card five fighters are getting yanked off. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Um, Obviously, there's going to be people testing positive, but I think if they could keep the numbers to where they are, I'd be surprised if whole cards folded. But I don't. They've had in the past where that main event gets hurt, and it just the juice isn't worth the squeeze of putting the whole card on, so they'll just put the kibosh on the whole thing.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be with how this year's gone, I wouldn't be surprised at anything, man. I really wouldn't. Like, I don't even I'm not even convinced that this fight tomorrow is going to go down, bro, with Khabib and Gaethje. You know what I'm saying? It seems like Khabib has that curse of just fucking awesome fights not being able to happen.
Mhm.
So I'm
Well,
praying it does because that's an awesome fight.
yeah. So far, I hope it does go down. I was really hoping to see him and Tony Ferguson. Notice I was just so frustrated when that fight just couldn't happen. And see you saying about the whole curse with them. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if that fight's gonna happen.
I don't think it will. I don't think it will. The loss to Gaethje certainly does put a. But if Gaethje goes out and win, I think he's a live dog for sure, and especially after seeing Khabib on the scale looking like he was hurting bad.
Yeah,
I think if Gaethje pulls it off, you got to have Khabib versus Tony. That fight has got to happen, man. It's got to.
and that's kind of how I see it as well. I've been paying attention a lot this last couple weeks, and yeah, there's a lot of factors going into that fight. I mean, one, yeah, it could be his bad weight cut. So whether or not that's going to translate into his cardio or his fight. I mean, and I mean, when you get a bad weight cut, we've seen it happen. I mean, your Jack, she had that really bad weight
Mhm.
when she fought Rose Namajunas. No disrespect to Rose, but I mean, I haven't seen her knock out too many girls, and for her to knock out you wanted the way she did, and you want can take a hit.
Mhm.
I mean, she did with that Chinese girl, Weili Zhang, and I think watching those kind of weight cuts happen, I mean, it does affect your chin. I'm sure it does, and so I'm really interested to see what's going to happen. I mean, I think Khabib, I think he knows it, and the fans know it that he can't get hit. He cannot get hit by Justin because Tony. I mean, I was surprised Tony took that shit kicking that he got. I mean, I never seen anybody get smacked that hard and still stand up like, okay, let's keep going, let's fight. Like he's going to round 4 or 5, and he's like, no, let's go, let's fight. I'm ready to go. Like he's still coming forward. So I don't know. I mean, but it's a high stakes fight for sure. I don't know. Like, how do you see that fight playing out now with that weight cut coming in?
Well, I've been saying the whole camp
Mm-hmm.
that I think Gaethje is a dark horse for sure.
Oh,
I think he can. I really do think he can pull it off. I think that first round is going to be a real test, or maybe the first three takedowns is going to be a real test to see. You will probably be able to read the entirety of the fight off that, because if Justin can take him down and keep him off of him, I mean, even in the Poirier fight in the second, I think it's the beginning of the second round, Dustin was able to create space and land some pretty good strikes.
yeah.
Khabib definitely has power, has kind of a weird, his striking. It's effective. Don't get me wrong. It's kind of strange though, kind of like purposefully herky jerky. You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
I think the power advantage goes to Justin. I think obviously the wrestling and top game goes to Habib. But I mean, Justin is an accomplished wrestler, so it'll be interesting to see how his MMA wrestling translates to it, and if he can keep Habib off him. They both have phenomenal cardio. So I mean, it's one of the best matchups in a long, long time. I think.
Yeah, and I think when Justin won that interim title, I think a lot of people opened their eyes and said, okay, like let's see what's going to happen.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, how I kind of see the fight is kind of the way the fight with who's that guy from New York? I like
I Quinta. Yeah, yeah.
Quinta. Yeah, I kind of see the way that kind of fight happened. I mean, that fight was on. I mean, props to Khabib and Al that they fought on like what so much.
A day's notice. I think like less than a day's notice, which is crazy.
Yeah, like a day's notice. So that could have been part of it, but Al didn't look bad against him either, and that's where I'm kind of worried for Khabib because he fought a wrestler who, yeah, he took him down a few times, but it got to the point where Al's like, no, bitch, I'm not going back to the ground. So,
Hmm.
I think that I'm not sure if that's going to happen where Gaethje's going to be able to weather the storm a little bit, and then once he starts touching Khabib up, that's when Khabib's going to have a hard time. Like because once you start taking that damage, I think anybody, you're not going to perform the same way. I mean, that's why I think most fighters you would think that they want to get out of the fight untouched so they perform better, but I don't know. I mean, we'll see how it goes for sure.
Yeah, I'm excited for it, man. It's gonna be like I said. This is other than probably the Tony versus Gaethje, which I was really pumped about, even though I wish it would have been Habib. This is one of the better fights in a long, long time. I think, just style for style.
Hmm. Absolutely. And have you kept tabs on any other fights on that card tomorrow, or is that just really the big one?
Ah, man, so I think Whitaker's fighting.
Mm.
I'm a big Whitaker fan. I think he's awesome. I honestly don't know who else is on that card, but I think I'm just so stoked for that main event. I kind of been overlooking the entire card.
Yeah, yeah. I know that Megamed versus Iron Kudalaba guy.
Right, the rematch there. Right, right.
That was
What
honest.
an awful stoppage, man. What is going? I watched that yesterday.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that ref didn't get fired on the spot.
Oh, he should have. Like that was.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it. I mean, you could clearly see. Yeah, the guy got rocked a few times, but the guy's fighting back. If the guy's fighting back, you let him fight. I know it. Yeah, he got hit good, but the guy's
Yeah,
fighting.
he's throwing head kicks, you know what I'm saying? And I think it got to the point that he kind of was baiting him, looking wobbled. That was my estimation anyway. But yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because I actually watched that yesterday. It popped up on my Instagram. That was one of the worst travesties as far as early stoppages go.
Yeah, and that fight had potential to be one of the fight of the year because
Hmm.
like the starting from the beginning, I mean the way he walked up into this corner, and I think that was just all, getting the fans into it. But yeah, I mean that beginning from the fight, that was just I thought that was the most that was one of the coolest things I've ever seen. Just walks up, gets in his corner, the guy tosses him against the cage, and I was like, this is like Rocky and this is like Rocky Four almost. Get
Yeah, man.
throwing each other in the ring and shit. Um, so and then of course in the way it got stopped. So and then obviously I think they rebooked it. Something happened where I think someone got hurt, and then they rebooked it again, and then I think
Ion, if that's how you pronounce his name, tested positive for COVID, like the day of weigh-ins, if I'm not mistaken, or after weigh-ins.
Yeah, I think so. And yeah, the day of the weigh-ins, and I was like, "Fuck, are you serious?" And then
Yeah.
finally, it's coming together. We're gonna see this fight. Um, yeah, well, man, both guys are beasts. And then you got other good fights on the too. I think this card is very underrated. I think that would be the word. A lot of great.
Yeah, from as a whole. Yeah, I mean, because it's getting outshined by the main event. I mean, but what can you expect?
Yeah, and that's really hard. It's hard on those fighters, but I mean, hey, if I had to fight, I'd be fighting on that card too, because oh shit, this is gonna be a good pay per view. Um, yeah, there's a lot of great fights. I mean, Whitaker and Cannonier. I mean, I like the Reaper. I don't know, Cannonier, he's good too, but I mean, I think Whitaker's unorthodox kind of striking will be a factor in the fight. But I don't know. I mean, he's one to get clipped a lot. He gets connected a lot. Whether it be his fights with Romero and I mean
Hmm.
even in Adesanya. I mean, he just has that way. He just gets clipped a lot. So I don't.
Even Till dropped him the last fight, and it's
Yeah.
one of those things he kind of wakes up after getting dropped. But I mean, I don't know. So with Cannonier, that dude has some serious power. He used to fight at heavyweight,
Yeah.
and he's coming down to 85. So he throws heat. And man, I think that's actually because that fight in general, for like divisionally, has so much uh, steam behind it that it's getting overpowered by the main event. Justifiably so.
Mm.
But I think that the middleweight title picture is in the hands of the results of that co-main event.
Yeah.
And that's a great scrap. I'm looking forward to that one too.
Yeah, I think yeah, and Dan White even mentioned he's like, I think that's probably the fight to make. It's Adesanya already said, I'd be willing to take Cannonier if he wins. I mean, and then of course he probably would take the rematch with the Reaper if opportunity presents itself for sure. Um, but I'd like to see him fight Cannonier, have him fight someone new. Um, but I mean, we'll see what happens. That's also another great division. I think all divisions are great. So
It's at a good. We're at a good spot, I think, as far as weight classes up to down. I think obviously light heavyweight has been historically thin over the last few years. So I think that there needs to be some names built. It's not that the talent's there. I think that the names aren't being built up quite as much. And I think that the interesting beef between John Jones and Adesanya is awesome. I'm really hoping those two fight. That's like a fantasy fight of mine.
oh, that would be interesting for sure. But we'll see what happens with Jones.
Right.
Yeah, he would have to come. He would have to at least try to come down to 185. That's just like for Israel to go up, and then because I mean, you already know Jones would have a huge fighting advantage. But I don't know. I don't know if Israel would be a good 205er. I don't know if he carries that weight well. I don't know if he would actually have to add on that weight. I'm not too sure.
Right. He
Uh,
probably has to add it on. I feel like I've heard that he's maybe 200 or less. But I don't know. You look at Paulo Costa, and in the off season, apparently he walks around more than John Jones does. So it's like if it happens at 205, I think that's the only way. I don't see Jones coming down to 85. I don't. He doesn't have the belt, so maybe they do like a 200-pound catch weight. Who knows? But I would imagine that it would be at 205 if anything.
yeah. Well, we'll definitely see how that fight goes. I know that I think he's training to get up to heavyweight first anyway. So if he's
Hmm.
to go up to heavyweight, that's a lot of weight shifting in that time. So I think it's just a bunch of Twitter bullshit. Um, just trying to see who's got the bigger dick in the sport, I think. But I think I think as of right now, I think John Jones, he's focusing on heavyweight for sure. I mean, I think you got to think like he is, because to stay at light heavyweight, there's nothing there for him at the moment. And he gave up the belt, so why would he go back and fight for it again? That's just disrespectful. Like, I think his focus is heavyweight. So, kind of talking about weight classes before we wrap up here. So you mentioned that you're probably going to stay at featherweight, right?
Well, this fight's at 55. I think I've had my last 3 or 4 at lightweight. Getting down to 45 sucks, and it was one of those things on the regional scene. I was like,
okay.
I was kind of feeling into my body. And I was like, man, I'm not making enough money down here to do 55. If UFC calls me up, hell yeah, I'll go down to 45. But I've been feeling good at 55. But realistically, I think that I'm 26. I think that I still have it in me to get down there, and might as well take a whack at it while I can. And physiologically, it makes sense and is possible, and I'm not dying too much. But at 45 or 55, I'm feeling good at both. But we'll cross that bridge after I get this contract.
Right. Yeah. So it's just kind of like so would it depend on opponents too? Like, would you kind of look at both divisions and say, okay, what's really worth going at 145 and 155? How is that how you would make that decision?
I think I'd have to commit to it, and I think just career wise at the time it would make sense for me to go down to 45, just because I do have a size advantage down there. But I don't think the UFC would be cool with me just flip flopping based on opponents. So I think I'd just pick a weight class and commit to it.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you see with the ranked guys, I think they have a little bit more of a pull on their contract to be able to do things like that. But I guess you kind of just take what you get, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, man.
But yeah, Tucker, I just want to thank you for coming on the podcast, man. I appreciate you taking your time. I know you're getting ready for your fight. So good luck with your fight on November 17th. Hopefully you get that contract, and hopefully we'll see you in the UFC, dude.
All right, bro. I appreciate you having me on. I'll talk to you later on.
All right. Thanks, Tucker.